Today, I'll build a PC on the most powerful processor from Intel, namely Intel Core i9 14900K, and test it in Minecraft on the maximum possible number of chunks. And at the end, we'll find out what'll happen if we connect only one power cable to the motherboard, despite the fact that the processor is capable of consuming 400 watts of power. Well, let's now build a PC for this task. This fairly budget 24-core processor was recently released on Socket 1700 and is currently the most high-frequency consumer processor. 6 GHz keeps a couple of cores and 5.7 GHz keeps everything productive. Today, we'll also find out how much it can be overclocked and how much it can be undervolted. Of course, I chose the budget ASRock Z690 Taichi motherboard for the PC, which has 20 power phases and an 8-layer PCB. Look at this. A new motherboard arrived in this condition, as if it came from the front line. This is the first and last time I order something from the store where I ordered. I hope the board is intact. Let's see. Looks like new. Someone may ask why I chose the board for the Z690 chipset and not the newer Z790. Yes, it would be more logical to buy a Z790 because the memory is overclocked a little better on those boards, but this board has a very cool trump card up its sleeve. It can overclock non-K 12th generation processors, and I want to overclock the i3 12100F to 5.5 GHz, and that's why I chose this particular board. There are plenty of different accessories in the second box, including keychains and keycaps and antennas for the Wi-Fi cannon. Memory, of course. As you might have guessed, I chose a budget one. From G-Skill DDR5 64GB 2 modules of 32GB each, with an XMP profile up to 5600 MHz. The modules are 2-rank, so I chose a low frequency. But the chips here are Hynix, which means that they have overclocking potential. Well, we'll find out later. SSD will be as many as 2 pieces of budget Samsung 980 Pro of 2 TB each. In a budget PC, there should be a lot of storage. Minecraft needs good memory too. At first, I wanted to make them work in RAID 0, but then changed my mind. Now, let's install our budget processor and budget memory too. These damn gloves. Put them on just so you don't see how much I love walnuts. A budget video card RTX 3090 from MSI with the name Supreme X. Look how much waste paper we have in the box. A guide on how to update your PC with a new video card from MSI Dragons. The manual is made in the style of comics. Very cool. But I already know all this. Look at this large caliber gun. It barely fits into the frame. I hope that all 24 gigabytes of memory that this video card has will be enough for Minecraft. The card is so fat that MSI even splurged on a normal holder for a video card. Or did I just overpay for this holder? I took a budget case from Lee & Lee Landcool 216 with ARGB fans. Of course, a budget computer could be assembled in a box with bananas, but let's be honest, style is everything. In this case, all looks like a filter element. I think that such a filter can still filter something. For example, sparrows. The manual shows that we can buy it separately. For example, here is such a front filter. This thing, by the way, costs almost as much as the entire case. But now we can filter something less than sparrows. Now, the power supply unit is, of course, a budget one, but anyway, it's not new. I already had it. Chieftronic 750 watts. It should be installed in this PC 1 kilowatt power supply. But I hope you remember what we're gonna test. As I said, it only has one 8-pin cable to power the CPU, but it's not a normal power supply. It is enchanted, so I put it in our budget PC. The CPU cooling system is also quite budget. AIO by Lee & Lee GA2 Trinity Performance 360 Black. This is one of the most efficient water cooling systems for the 1700 socket. Well, at least it's in the top 10. The total weight is 2.3 kilograms. It's not very difficult to install. There is such a plate in the kit. You need to put it on the back of the board, and from the front, install such washers. Damn the store where I bought this board. And I'm still thinking why I can't properly center the board in the case. Okay, let's not talk about the bad. Here, I connect one cable to the processor. It's really convenient to connect these wires with one pad. Another convenient thing in this case is to install a liquid cooling system. I removed the roof from the case and screwed the radiators separately. Then put everything together. You look at this area. And now, see how the manufacturer wants us to apply thermal paste? The kit includes such a set. Thermal paste and this sheet with hollowed out hexagons on it. This is how we glue that sheet, and we put thermal paste on it. That's it. I'm a professional. I'm a pro at this topic. Then we peel it off and we get such a wonderful picture. You won't even guess that I'm actually assembling a PC with an i3 12400F and pretending to assemble it with i9. But it's not necessary for you to know this, and I'll not say it so that you do not guess. Cable management. I am so perfect in my knowledge that I insert wires with my eyes closed. The fact is that both the motherboard and the case have humanitarian support function for the video card, and the video card itself has its own support. And I decided, why not install them all at the same time? There's not much support, especially in terms of supporting Ukraine. If this graphics card were Ukraine, then it would be the most supported Ukraine in the world. For some people, the world rests on 3 elephants, and I have a video card on 3 holders. Now, I'll assemble a PC and see what it's capable of. I was assembling the PC and it turned out to be some kind of Sergeant Mahon's wheelbarrow. I need to set it to more patriotic tones. That's better. Okay, now, what about the specifications? The processor works at 5.7 GHz on all productive cores and at 4.4 GHz on energy-efficient cores. I already removed all power limits in the BIOS and also slightly overclocked the memory and adjusted the timings. The results were as follows. On the left, without settings. In the center, XMP. On the right, I overclocked the memory. It'd be possible to produce even better results from this memory, but I don't have time for that. Now, Minecraft. Let's start with the Bedrock version because it seems to be more optimized, and finish with Java Minecraft. Let's start with the small one. 5 chunks, FPS more than 1000, and beyond our nose, we can't see anything. 16 chunks, we can already see much further. The FPS has dropped by 200 frames less. 32 chunks, we can see quite far. The FPS has dropped to 500. 64 chunks, we can see very far. The FPS has dropped to 100 frames per second, but it is comfortable to play. Now, the maximum that the game allows, 96 chunks. And it already seriously affects performance so much, if you fly, the FPS drops to 40 and it's not very comfortable to play. But if you run on the ground, it's still normal. 5 GB of video memory and as much as 21 GB of RAM are already occupied. The CPU is loaded at 45% so that we can bypass the restrictions games for the number of chunks. You need to go to the folder with the game and open the options.txt file. Then we find this term. Here it is written 1536. If we open the calculator and multiply 96 by 16, we will get this number. That is, in each chunk there are 16 blocks, and we must write the number in blocks here. Let's start with 150. Now in the settings we have a plus next to the number of chunks. This means that everything is working. Now the computer has become heavy. 9 GB of video memory have already been filled, and the FPS has dropped to an unplayable 27 frames. Let's try 300 chunks. Well, seems that I've found a limit on the number of chunks in Bedrock Minecraft. This is how it looks. Not very far, to be honest. If you fly a little, the video memory is already occupied as much as 17 GB, and the RAM is under 60 GB. At the same time, it's very difficult to play. Let's now try Java Minecraft, and here I will start right away with the trump cards. For that, I had to install these mods to optimize, and to be able to see more than 32 chunks, and I start with 250 chunks right away. And I don't know why, but my Minecraft doesn't draw chunks until I physically go to the second place. So I spent a lot of time to draw all these chunks, and this is what we have. The game does not like multi-threaded processors at all, or simply the cores do not load because the processor's waiting for a long time for a response from the memory, which, by the way, is completely clogged here. 60 GB of RAM and almost all 24 GB of video memory. And someone else says that games will not need such an amount of video memory for a long time. This game dates back to 2011, and even then it lacked 24 gigabytes of video memory, but it's in 2K resolution if you haven't noticed. The FPS negatively increased to 60 frames per minute, and this is what I managed to draw. If you look closely in the fog, that is where our chunks end. I spent all 3 hours on this. But if we descend from the sky to the ground, then our FPS grows to a whopping 4 to 7 frames per second. I think Minecraft without mods, computers will not be able to run this game normally for like another 30 years until quantum computers become desktop. I think many people will be interested in what frequencies this processor can be overclocked to. Let's try to take 6 GHz for all cores. That's it. I think 1.5 volts will be enough. Here, 6 GHz shows. I wonder if our budget CPU will withstand the stress test. Damn it, of course it won't take such a frequency. The CPU is squeezed from the factory to the maximum. The only thing it's capable of is taking me out of balance. Okay, 5.9. The voltage remains the same. Well, the stress test is already running, but the CPU instantly drops to 5.5 GHz per core due to throttling. Let's now try to undervolt this CPU and see how much it can consume and what performance it can produce. A frequency of 5.4 GHz, a voltage of 1.2 volts. With such settings, the processor consumes only 250 watts and gives only 300 points less than with a consumption of almost 400 watts and at a frequency of 5.8, at which it is not quite stable, by the way. In stock, the motherboard puts 1.36 volts on the processor. The consumption is 340 watts, but the processor does not overheat and keeps a stable frequency of 5.7 GHz. It does not overheat, of course, because the cooling is good. Very budget-friendly, by the way. The difference in different frequency presets and memory timings in Cyberpunk, the worst result in the JEDEC version at 4,400 MHz, there were drops even less than 90 frames per second. And now let's see what'll happen to the processor power cable if the processor itself will consume under 400 watts. So I turned on the sine bench test for 10 minutes. Now let's see what happens to the wire in those 10 minutes. Well, almost 10 minutes have already passed. That's what the energy consumption was. And you know, the CPU cable didn't even heat up. The fact is that this power supply unit has very fat and hard wires. Plus, the motherboard itself is made of an 8-layer PCB, and therefore in my case, everything's fine. There would be some Chinese power supply unit of the same power, then most likely the cable would have warmed up nicely. I think you like Sergeant Mahone's budget PC for $2,700 bucks. Subscribe and we will meet very soon.